All right, good morning. Dan Passarelli here. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about maximizing your income, the power of selling credit spreads. Now, before we get started, I need to point out options are not for everyone. You should read characteristics and risks of standardized options before trading. Get a copy of that by emailing investorservices@theocc.com. So for those of you who are not familiar with me, once again, my name is Dan Passarelli. I am an author of two trading books on options, specifically trading option Greeks and the Market Taker's Edge. And I've been part of a couple other books and written a lot of articles for various publications. I am also a trader, have been for a long time, about 30 years or so. Been there, done that, still doing it. And I am the founder, president of Market Taker Mentoring, which is the leader in option trader education. And I am a trading industry collaborator. I've worked with literally every options exchange in the world in some capacity or another from time to time, mainly in education or consulting, as well as many of the top quality brokerage firms like this one, Firstrade. And I'm a family man. My wife, Kathleen, who those of you who are in the Market Taker family already are maybe familiar with, and our two kids, Sam and Isabel. They're grown, and I like to do lots of different things. I'm a runner, a foodie, traveled all over a lot of the world with my family, and musician time to time. But we are here to talk about credit spreads. And actually, before we do, I'd like to make sure that I'm not wasting my breath. So please let me make sure that you can hear me. Would you mind please going to the questions box and give me a big old yes if you can hear me. I'll take a look at the questions box here off to the side. All right. Hey, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chris. All right. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Cho. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about credit spreads. Excuse me. And in our talking about credit spreads, I'm going to introduce them. I like to, in some ways, keep things basic so the folks that are new to whatever it is I'm talking about can learn something new. But I know some of you are experienced with options. And in fact, hey, you know what? Before I even go any further, let me do that as well. Let me take a little poll. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being I'm totally brand new to options, 5 being I've been doing this for years and I know what I'm doing. I'm here to learn more. On a scale 1 to 5, how experienced are you with trading options? Hit that questions box again for me, please. Scale of 1 to 5, 1 being pretty new, 5 being very skilled. Holy moly. I don't know if you guys can see these answers, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're all over the board, which is great, and which is actually kind of what I figured. So back to what I was saying. What I'm going to do is I am going to break this down so that the folks who are 1s and 2s can get something good out of this. And the folks that are 3s and 4s, or maybe even if there's some 5s here, will also get some things that you don't hear in typical presentations. You know, I've been doing this a long time, traded as a market maker, a professional trader for a long time on the floor of the exchange. And I like to share things that other people don't share with you, so that you can not just learn how this works, but be really good at it. Nothing would make me happier for you to have attended one of my trainings and to become very, very successful from it. That is the kind of thing that excites me, and that's why I'm here. And so that said, I'm going to actually do 2 things as far as training goes here for you today. We're not just going to talk about this here, but I'm also going to give you free, my gift to you, a strategy guide that I compiled recently. Option Credit Spreads Explained. So please download that, but read it later. what we're going to talk about here is designed to complement that. So that this is not in replace of today's training, but it is in addition to it. So just go to markettaker.com/guide, market as in stock market, taker as in take what is rightfully yours, 2 T's in a row. The second T is for theta, markettaker.com/guide, and get option credit spreads explained, free gift. All right. So selling options. And in fact, let me even back up. So, and this is intended for those of you who are really new to this, but it's also maybe a little bit of like an eye opener for those of you who are experienced to think about what we're going to talk about today in a really great context. For those of you who are, you've heard of options and you just kind of start dipping your toe in the water, you start attending some of these trainings that great organizations like Firstrade put on for you at no cost to you so that you can learn. A lot of these trainings are, hey, I buy a call, this is what happens. Stock goes up, I make money, I have time decay against me. It's a lot of times we think about using options as a substitute for the stock. Buying a call instead of buying the stock, buying a put instead of shorting the stock and taking on all that risk. But that's not all we can do when it comes to options. When it comes to stocks, like trading stocks, if you are a stock trader, many of you who are stock traders have probably never shorted a stock. It's so much more common to buy stocks than it is to short them. Statistic that I saw a while ago, I don't know how valid this is anymore or even was at the time, but it sounds about right to me that only 16% of traders have shorted a stock ever in their lives. But with options, it's different because options are contracts. And the two parties of a contract are the buyer and the seller. Just kind of like with buying a house or buying a car. You sign a contract. One person's the buyer, one person's the seller. But here, what we're selling is not something physical like a house or a car that you can touch. It is a right. And it is the right to buy, a call is the right to buy a stock. And somebody who buys that right owns the right to buy the stock. And so consequently, the person who sells that call has the obligation to sell the stock to that person at the strike price if that person who owns the stock decides to exercise it. So I know I'm breaking this down into like first principles here, just really, really, basic, because it's important to understand that 50% of the option trades are selling positions. Exactly 50%, because it has to be, because anyone who ever buys an option, there's someone who sells that option to them. Now, usually when you trade, you're trading with a market maker who just buys and sells, indiscriminately because they're buying on the bid and selling on the offer, and that's their edge. But you get the edge in being able to analyze and put on a smart trade that makes sense, which is what I'm going to share with you today. So if we're going to get into this pool of selling options, here's our goal. It's pretty straightforward. When you buy an option, you want to sell it for more later. But here, when we sell an option, meaning don't have a position and sell, put on a short position, our goal is to buy it back for less later. Instead of buy low, sell high, we're selling high and buying low. Now, the nice thing is that if we sell a call, if the stock goes down, great, but it doesn't have to go down because we have something else on our side that when we're selling options, we're always trying to take advantage of. And that is time decay. As time passes, all options get worth a little bit less each day, all else held constant. When I say all else held constant, I mean, sure, if the underlying stock goes up or down, I'll make or lose money on the call, lose or make money on the put. But that held constant, we still lose a little bit of value every day on the options. And that's why a lot of people sell options. That's what attracts a lot of people into selling options, is because they have this one thing that's arguably on their side: time decay. We measure time decay with what? Okay, how about some of those 3s and 4s here? What do we measure time decay with? What option Greek do we measure time decay with? Theta. Boom, Dominic. Nice. I don't remember if I saw you answer before, but definitely, I would say 3, by most standards. Personally, I think people should learn about the Greeks. Dang, Ryan, I'm a 3. There you go, Jesus. I love it. 3. Okay, cool, man. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who I would personally say 2s ought to start knowing about the Greeks. But for some reason, a lot of people don't get into it until a little bit later, but that's neither here nor there. That's a presentation for a different day. In fact, that day already happened. What day was that? I did a training on essential concepts using option Greeks on, what day was that? August 6th. So you should go back in the archives and watch that if Greeks are newer to you, or you just want a refresher. And I kind of drilled down a little bit more too. So, all right. So here we're really trying to take advantage of time decay, or theta, by the option that we sell getting worth less and buying it back at a lower price. So we have some risks as well. We have things on our side, and we have things that are risks. Direction could go our way, could go against us. Volatility, which again, I'll direct you to that training on the Greeks that I did a few weeks ago, that you can go back and look at the archives. Volatility can help us profit or cause us to lose. And there is another problem. When you buy an option, what is the most you can lose? What you pay for the option, right? The most you can lose is what you pay for the option. The most you can make is unlimited. Now with the put, technically it's not unlimited, but it's a freaking lot compared to what you can lose. So if we're an option seller, we're on the opposite side of that equation. Most we can make is what we collect for the option. But if we sell a call, from a theoretical basis, we have unlimited loss. Now, I have never once saw someone lose unlimited, like infinity. I've never seen an account that says your balance is negative infinity. Never once. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. But unlimited still means a freaking lot. So that's a little bit of a problem. And that is what kind of scares a lot of people. Like, why would I make this trade where I can make this much, but I can lose this much? And that scares a lot of people off from what could be an otherwise good strategy if you know how to overcome that obstacle. And there is a solution. And the most obvious solution for that is the credit spread. So a credit spread is when a trader, well, there's 2 types of credit spreads. Let's break this down to make this really easy and accessible. There's a call credit spread and a put credit spread. A call credit spread is when a trader sells a call and then buys a higher strike call with the same expiration on the same underlying. A put credit spread is when a trader sells a put and then buys a lower strike put with the same expiration on the same underlying. Now, I'll tell you what, I am going to take a second and I'm going to break this down into the roles of each option. Now, on the one hand, this is one of those things where it's going to help the new people leaps and bounds. Like, you're going to go from complete novice to experienced by the end of this slide in a lot of ways. And the experienced folks, you're going to some of you will have this aha moment because I don't think anybody ever explained this to you this way. And just because I've been doing this so long and you learn when you teach, I found it gave me an aha moment when I came to this realization. So with each of these, there's just two options, but each of those options does a different thing. And here's the big secret. The short option is the trade. The short option is where you will make or lose your money. That's the trade. This is about option selling. That's the trade. Now, the problem with option selling is that you have unlimited loss potential. So the long option comes to the rescue. The long option is the insurance policy. The long option is the component that makes the risk limited. So that's why credit spreads are so special. We're doing this really simple, straightforward thing, selling a call or a put and hoping to buy it back later. But we're getting rid of that unlimited risk component. Now, for those of you who have some experience with this, you might have looked at this before and said, oh, right, but Dan, here's the problem. If I just sell the call, I can get X. But if I sell the call spread, I get only 30% of X. I collect so much less, right? Have you ever thought that before? Those of you who have some experience with this and you've kind of thought it through, that thought has probably crossed your mind. But then once you get even more experienced, you come to realize, oh, wait, but my margin is so much less. I tie up so much less capital doing spreads that instead of selling one call and collecting, say, $1, well, I can sell 3 or 4 spreads, 3 or 4 call spreads and collect 90 cents or $1.20 or whatever it is, if it comes out to about 30%. And guess what? You can make about the same, but your risk is so much smaller. If the market makes a huge move against you, if you're just short a call, if the market really takes up to the upside, you can lose a massive amount just being short one call. But if you're short 3 call spreads, you have limited loss. So credit spreads, if we're a trader and not an investor, are so much better in every way. Now, if we're an investor, it's a common strategy to sell puts, cash secured puts, with the intent of, hey, if the stock goes down and I get assigned, that's okay. In fact, wasn't that yes. Last week, I did a training on selling puts to generate income. If you miss that and you're an investor and you like that idea, go to Firstrade's archives and listen to that one. But if you don't want to take possession of the underlying, you just want to avoid it, then spreads are a much superior trade. Now, we talked about this a little bit so far. The exposure of credit spreads is, first of all, the whole intent is theta, make money from time decay. But the more wild cards, the things that give us the possibility of also making money above and beyond theta or losing money, below and beyond theta? I don't know what the idiom for that is, but maybe losing more than I make on theta is delta and vega. And so we need to have a way to take into account our exposure of direction and volatility. Direction and volatility, delta and vega. We need to consider and attempt to not just, be conscious of it, but actually turn it from a wild card where I might make or lose money to another source of profit above and beyond theta. All right, so let's talk about this. I have some guidelines for trading credit spreads. First of all, with any type of option trade, the thing that I always want to do is I want to know two things. Well, more than two things, but let's start one at a time here. I want to know my maximum gain and my maximum loss. With selling options, including credit spreads, because again, it's an option selling strategy just with a hedge. What is the most I can make on this trade? And what is the most I can lose on this trade? Now, what I want to set up with the credit spread, and this is important, if you are taking notes, write this down, is I want to set up a high probability trade. Now, there's good news. Unless you do a credit spread dreadfully wrong, it is naturally a high probability trade. Now, sometimes you listen to, some goof on YouTube who, has like images of money raining down on them and say, oh, you get rich so quick. 95% of my trades win. High probability. That's not what I'm talking about here. This is not some sort of overpromise like this is the secret system, holy grail. This is a trade where if you just set it up and do the statistics, if you set it up the way I'm going to share with you today, they will be naturally high probability from a pure mathematical standpoint. Now, that doesn't guarantee wins or anything, but they will be high probability trades, and that's important. And there's another side to that, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes as well, but keep that in mind. Now, we want to set up credit spreads with an expiration date somewhere between 3 days until expiration to 3 weeks until expiration. Now, it's possible to set them up with 1 day to expiration, even 0 days to expiration. Put them on in the morning, they expire in the afternoon. I've done that before. And it's possible to set them up with 3 months until expiration. I've very occasionally done that before, but I find that 3 days to 3 weeks is really the sweet spot. And one of the reasons for that, I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here for a minute, but, well, you tell me. What are we trying to do here? What are we trying to really make money on? What's our main focus? Time decay, theta, right? So why would 3 days to 3 weeks be the optimal time horizon? Who can tell me that? Who can tell me that? What is the concept that I'm getting at here? We got some smart folks in here. The people who are number fours. Dominic, boom. Dominic was first here. So Dominic said theta, and let's not just say theta is time decay, because what theta actually is it's a measurement of time decay. If you were to be able to look at an options theta, that would be how much exactly the option decreases from today to tomorrow. If the theta is 0.04, that's 4 cents. That means tomorrow the option is worth 4 cents less. So that theta, as Dominic said here, increases the closer we get to expiration. So if I sell a credit spread that has 3 months until expiration, every day it'll lose a little tiny bit of value for theta. And if the stock goes up or down or volatility changes, it'll have those profits or losses too. It's fairly inefficient when there's a lot of time until expiration because the theta, the daily measurement of time decay, is so small. But when we get to like 3 weeks and 2 weeks and 1 week, and especially during expiration week itself, the theta becomes very big. That rate of time decay, the one thing that absolutely helps us, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The trades get better and better and better as we get closer to expiration. So personally, I always keep them 3 weeks until expiration. Honestly, usually 2 weeks or less, but I will sometimes go 3 weeks. all the way down until expiration week. All right, so good. You guys are getting it. I love it. Oh, and somebody else, the other person who answered, I deleted it here just to keep my screen clean, actually had a different answer than I was looking for, but a very good answer as well. And I'm going to paraphrase because I deleted exactly what you said, but no earnings, to avoid earnings. Because when we put on a credit spread, as we'll see in a minute, the risk can actually be it can be somewhat bigger than our maximum profit. Not like selling a naked call or a naked put where it's massively bigger than our maximum profit, but it can be bigger. So we always want to avoid earnings. And if we keep the time horizon to expiration, if we keep the expiration date before earnings happens, then we can avoid earnings, and that is very key to a superior trade as well. And the person said earnings, but that is other news also. Like for those of you who are watching this live now, which is today, what is today's date? Today is the August 20th. We have tomorrow, Wednesday, the FOMC minutes from the last meeting, and we also have the Jackson Hole Summit starting. I would like to kind of dial back on some of my short option trades, including credit spreads, until that's over. Or I can kind of pick and choose too. I'm definitely not opposed to it, but I've got to be a little bit more careful, trade a little smaller, trade a little further away from the money, etc. Okay, so the setup. We start with direction. Now, why would we start with direction? Isn't this whole thing about time decay, about theta? Why do we care about direction if we're trying to make money on time passing? Because we want to make money on time passing and not have direction screw it up. So we care about direction, but in a different way than we care about direction when we're trading trending stocks or momentum stocks or breakout stocks. This is a different type of direction. Instead of needing it to go our way, we just need it to not go against us too much. So we want to find a stock that has support or resistance and maybe recently bounced off it. It's got recently established support and resistance. And we're going to use the support or resistance level to set the potential short option strike. Now, again, if you're taking notes, and I'm putting my heart and my soul and telling you like everything I can within a 50-minute time frame here. If you're taking notes, and you should be, this would be a good time to write down that point. We're going to use support or resistance level to set the potential options strike, short options strike. Now, for those of you who are more advanced, we're also going to look at what is called implied volatility. Now, implied volatility is, in my opinion, a pretty poorly, inaptly worded thing. Forget about the word volatility. What implied volatility really is it's a measure of how cheap or expensive options are. And we're not going to get hung up on that. We're not going to worry about analyzing that or anything. If you're pretty experienced and you have those tools, et cetera, you can kind of start thinking about that. But you don't even necessarily have to know exactly what the implied volatility number is or see the volatility chart. If you have access to that kind of stuff, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But if you trade the same things over and over again, you start getting a sense of, wow, I can get a lot for this credit spread this time. The last couple of weeks, I could only get this, but now I get 20% more than that. That's what we're looking to do. Because this is an option selling strategy, we're looking for the ability to sell options that are more expensive than usual. overpriced options, which is in terms of implied volatility technically. All right, so let's do a little analysis here, shall we? All right, so this is Goldman Sachs Group. So Goldman Sachs, in this example, prices are not current or accurate. This is for illustrative purposes. I'm not recommending this trade, and I'm not just saying that for legal reasons. I'm literally not. I'm just using this as an example. This is a reasonably good example, not the best example in the history of trading credit spreads, but I want you to be able to understand how this works. Because what my goal is for when you leave here today, you're going to have a solid foundation on how to do these. And you know, again, you have the strategy guide that I wrote, that I gave you the link to, markettaker.com/guide, to learn a little bit more on and such. So we look at this chart, and we could draw a resistance line right about there. Okay, so that is $510 a share. Okay, so that's resistance. What does that mean? Well, that means, you know, when the stock got up to that line, it kind of, you know, the high just about hit it here, it came down. Here, you know, we did have a high that went through it, but I don't put too much focus on the wicks. Basically, you know, when the highs, probably could have drawn this line just a smidge lower to get it exact, but, you know, hey, I'm no artist, right? When it got up to 510, it couldn't really get through it, or at least not close through it. Got up there again, couldn't get there, couldn't close through it. So, by the way, why does that happen? What really is a resistance line? Is it some magic line that we draw on a chart and like, oh yeah, that means the stock just magically doesn't go through there? No. Why does the stock go down? And this is for the folks here who are more advanced. And go ahead, we'll have another little open discussion here, especially if you're a 3 or 4. But I bet even some 1s or 2s would know this. Why? What is the only reason why a stock would go down? I could ask the same for why does the stock go up? You can answer either way. Anybody? It's kind of one of these almost like smart aleck questions. Why does the stock go down? Because that's where people sell it, right? There's more selling orders there than buying orders. So the buying orders go to buy, and yeah, supply and demand is another way of saying that. Thanks, Sherrod. Yeah, Anonymous says sellers also, right? That's where the buy orders. The market mechanics are, there's buy orders and sell orders. When the buy order is on a seller's offer, if there's more to buy than there are to sell, more volume to buy than to sell, it takes out all the sellers, and then there's the next level of sellers. The price goes up. If they buy at that price and takes out all the sell orders, then the price goes up. But then if there's a lot of sell orders there, and there's not enough buying volume to take all those sell orders, then it can't go up anymore. And probably if there's that much selling pressure at that point, somebody's going to come in and sell it, and the opposite will happen. It'll take out the buy orders. There's more selling volume than buying volume, and it pushes the price down. And so when you see a resistance line, that's what happens. When you see a support line, that's what happens. It's, in the case of resistance, it's not enough buying pressure to take out the selling orders, and the sellers take control and push down take out all the buying orders. Support's just the opposite. All the selling orders there's not enough selling orders to take out all that buying volume. So the buying volume takes control and takes out the selling orders. So that, you know, what a chart is really a map of human behavior, like, right? A map of human behavior. This is a map of when people were buying and selling, and they couldn't get up above 110. So what does that mean? Well, if that's where sell orders have been just a couple of weeks ago, and maybe a couple weeks before that, a lot of these traders run mathematical models. This is a very, very algorithmic type age. So those sell orders, there's a good chance that they're still there. We don't know for sure, but more often than not, support and resistance hold. So what I would like to do, remember, resistance was at 510. What if I sold the 510 calls? Because when I make this trade, what I really want to do is I want to sell these options and have them expire worthless. That's a little bit of an oversimplification. I'll probably buy them back before expiration, but let's just think about it that way for a minute. But this is a credit spread, right? And so I want to have protection. So in addition to selling the 510 calls, I'm going to buy the 512.5 puts. Now, if I sell the 510 calls at, if I sell the 510 calls, let's back up here. If I sell the 510 calls at 274 and buy the 512.5 calls at 221, that's 274 minus 221. I collect 53 cents. But what if we were to middle the market? What if we were to sell these a little above 274? Not like exactly in the middle of the market, because the market makers are unlikely to fill me there, but just a little above the bid, closer to the bid than the offer, but a little above the bid, maybe at 285, and buy these a little below the offer, not right in the middle, but a little below the offer, maybe at 210. Well, if I sell these at 285 and buy these at 210, I could collect not 53 cents, but 75 cents. So I can collect more if I middle the market. There's a nice little technique for you. Maybe at some point in the future, I'll do a training on middling the market. And by the way, if you like my teaching style and you find this useful to you, please mark your calendars. I do this every week on Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Mark your calendars and please attend regularly and tell your trader friends about it. Okay, so here's how this works. If I collect 75 cents for this spread, I sell the 510 calls, buy the actually, this is supposed to be 512.5 calls. Sorry about that. Hold on. I'm just going to fix that so nobody gets confused here. Okay. I sell the 510 calls, buy the 512.5 calls, and I collect 75 cents. These all expire at a certain time. There are 5 days until expiration. This is a screenshot from Firstrade's option chain with 5 days left until expiration. If 5 days from now, Goldman is still trading below 510, and, by the way, this stock was trading at 504, below 510, it was trading at 504 when we did this. So 504 would be like about here. So if it goes down, if it's below 504 at expiration, if it's at 504 at expiration, even if it's at 509 and 99 cents at expiration, once the bell rings on that Friday, these options will expire. They will go away, and that 75 cents I get to keep. It's my profit, max profit. Now, if Goldman goes above 510 and is trading above 510 at expiration after the bell rings on Friday, then what's going to happen is I'm going to get assigned on the 510 calls, because the person that I sold the 510 calls to owns the right to buy that stock from me at $510 a share. There's a little bit of oversimplification, but it's a good way to think about it. So if the stock is at like 510 and 30 cents, that person can buy the stock 30 cents lower than where it is in the market. They're going to do that. They're going to exercise, and I'm going to have to sell that stock to this person at 5.10. But I still have that 75 cents. So if I get assigned and have to sell it at 5.10, my effective sales price is actually 5.10 plus the 75 cents I collected. So my break even would be 5.10.75. Now, okay, as long as I'm below 5.10.75, I have a winning trade. If I'm above there, then that short stock starts causing me to lose. But I own an insurance policy, right? I either make or lose money based on the short calls, but my hedge is the long calls. If Goldman is above 512.50 at expiration, I can exercise the 512 calls and stop the bleeding. I can limit my losses. So while the most I can make is 75 cents, the most I can lose is $1.75. How do I figure that? Well, if I get assigned, I'm literally selling at 5.10, but I've also got that 75 cents. So I'm basically selling at 5.10.75. 512.50 minus 5.10.75 is $1.75. So yes, now on the one hand, we've got a disproportionate risk reward. I can lose a little bit more than twice of what I can make. But I've got a head start on making. If the stock's at 504, if it's lower than 504, I win. If it's at 504, I win. If it's above 504, but still below 510, I win. So it's a high probability trade because I'm selling these out of the money higher strike calls. And it's even more higher probability if I'm using resistance to help me set my strikes. If I'm selling that call strike at or above where the sell orders have been in the past, that gives me an even better chance of making money on this trade. Now, I mentioned volatility before, specifically implied volatility. And again, let's not get fancy. What that really means is selling more expensive options than usual. Why is that important? Well, because the at-the-money options get, if options get more expensive because this implied volatility gets more expensive, the at-the-money options get more expensive than the out-of-the-money options. So that means the spread itself would be more. Instead of selling at 75, I might be able to sell at 85. And if I sell at 85, that means my maximum profit would be bigger. It wouldn't be 75, it'd be 85. And because my maximum loss is a function of the formula high strike minus low strike minus credit received, that means the bigger the credit received, not just the bigger the max profit, but the smaller the loss potential. So that's why it's really important to try and sell options that are more overpriced, because it helps both my max profit and it helps my maximum loss. And actually, technically, it also helps my break even too, right? Because before my break even was 510.75. If I sell the spread at 85, now my break even is a dime higher, 510.85, which makes my probability of winning even bigger. It makes every single thing about this trade better. All right, so once we have this trade on, what's our trade management? Well, look, I explained this in the sense like if I hold it all the way until expiration and they expire worthless, I reach my maximum profit. But who here, give me a big old yes if like you like the idea of taking profits and you would give up some profits in order to have more profits. Give me a big old yes if you're okay closing a trade early so that you can lock in a profit to guarantee a winner instead of wait and squeeze out every single penny. Chris says yes. Jay says yes. Chirag says yes. Dominic says yes. Yeah, me too. Me too. So here's what I do. I typically don't hold these all the way until expiration. What I do is I close the trades when they hit about a 65% max profit. So what was my maximum profit on this trade? It was 75 cents, right? That's the most I can make is the premium collected. Well, I'm not going to let it go to expiration and try and get that 75 cents. If I can buy that back for like 2/3 of the max profit, I will. If I can buy it back at 25 cents and just lock in a 50-cent profit way before expiration, lock in the profit, take that trade off, put on another trade, I can compound my winners faster and bigger. I actually make more, I can potentially actually make more money in the long run by taking my profits early than I can leaving this risk on, leaving this margin tied up to squeeze out an extra 25 cents. Give me the lion's share of the profit now. I'm going to go make another good trade that meets these criteria. Now, what if the trade goes against me? Because even though these are high probability trades, not all of them are going to win. They're not. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, right? If the stock goes up through the short strike, I'm going to close that puppy. And if it happens, shortly after I make the trade, a long time before expiration, which on a 5-day trade, like maybe it goes up there tomorrow. Well, I am going to close that and I'm going to take a small loss. It probably won't be 50 cents. I might lose 20 cents or 30 cents or 40 cents. That's okay. Because if it's a high probability trade, I'm going to have more winners than losers. If my winners are bigger, or even if they're the same as if my average winner is, even if my average winner is the same as my average loser, but I win more than I lose, I now have a business. I now have a money generating machine if I can set it up that way. And, it's not easy. There's an act to it. I'm laying out basically a very, very simple way to do this. And it is simple. The more you practice it, the more you get better at it, get the nuances down. I believe that anybody can do this. So this is going to be the mind frame. We're naturally going to have more winners than losers. Now, I say that, and you might try this, and your first 4 trades might be losers. And you're going to say, Dan told me that most of my trades are going to be winners. I'm 100% losers. Okay, don't just make 4 trades, make 30 trades. And after you make 30 trades, then tell me what your win-loss rate is. It takes 30 data points to be statistically relevant. So let's see. And, I'm not saying, hey, after this presentation, go out there and, trade this and go crazy, trade 100 lots. Start paper trading, get a notebook, write down the trade that you would have made. The next day, look at it. Oh, okay, I would have made money. Okay, yeah. Here's where I would have taken it off of my 65% profit. Here's where I would have closed it because it went through my short strike against me. This is what I would have lost. Do a little log of it. You probably won't write it down on a piece of paper. You do it on a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. Google Sheets. Oh, yeah, baby. Log 30 trades that you just do on a spreadsheet, no money. And if it starts working, that's when you can build up. Start trading 1 lots. But Dan, I have a $500,000 in my account. I'm not going to trade 1 lots. That's silly. It's not silly at all. When you start trading real money, the psychology gets in the way. And you hit the wrong button. Oh, crap. I thought I was selling that. I was buying it. Oops. You're going to make mistakes. So we always want to start out really small. And then as we prove to ourselves that the system that we have works, then we can slowly start trading bigger. And that's how you become a trader. You scale up, scale into it. Okay. There are some simple steps to this. Simple series of analyses. This is directionally biased with support for put spreads or resistance for call spreads. It's not that we need the stock to go our way. We just need it to not go too far against us. Again, that's why it's high probability. And that the prices make sense. If we're selling a spread that's really, really far out of the money, we might be in a situation where we stand to make 10 cents and stand to lose $2.40. Like, we don't want to make those trades either. We want to kind of hit that sweet spot where we're close enough to the money where we get a big enough profit, good enough risk reward, but far enough away from the money that we feel more confident that there's a better chance of this trade working out. Okay, what questions do you have that I can answer to help you walk away here today to be better at trading credit spreads? What questions can I answer? Man, you guys have had some really, really great stuff to say and ask, and great thoughts so far. I have time for maybe 3 questions before we call it a day here. Any questions? Any questions? There we go. Trag says, how do you find the stock for options? Well, yeah, I mean, look, here's what I do. I log into Firstrade. I go to stocks/ETFs, because you can do this on ETFs too. And I look at the stock chart. That is step 1. Look at the stock chart and see if there is support or resistance. And if there's not, that's okay. Then I look at a different stock. And how do I know which stocks to look at? We want them to be pretty liquid. We want them to have tighter bid-ask spreads. I talked about that in a previous Firstrade training. And which stocks tend to have tighter bid-ask spreads? Ones that are in some of the major indexes. I might just Google Dow Jones 30 stocks. Not all of those are super liquid, but you have a better chance getting liquid ones. S&P 500 stocks. Not all of those are liquid either. Or I might just Google most active stock options. If I do that, what comes up? Let's see. I'm doing this on my other screen. I've got a bunch of screens all around me. That's why I'm looking there. I'm looking there. I'm looking there. Looking there. So most active stock options. NVIDIA, Tesla, Starbucks. I think that's just because they just had earnings. Apple, Intel, Palantir, Amazon, SoFi, Fubo, Google, Meta, ASTS, Baba, Microsoft, SMCI. That's a Wiley one. Zim, Pfizer, Mara, AVGO. And I just trade, I look at charts of the most active. If they have support or resistance, I'll consider a credit spread, see if it makes sense. And if it does, I'll trade it. That's it. You don't have to have some, massive software program or anything like that. Okay, Chris says, what about diagonal put spreads? Buying a put at about 90 days out and then sell the weeklies of that same stock every week, letting the insurance stay the same for weeks in a row while I'm selling weeklies and making adjustments as needed. I love that, Chris. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You do have to be a little bit more careful with that, because one of the things that we didn't really have time to talk about is the Greek gamma. And those shorter term options have higher gamma. So basically what that means in a nutshell is while selling those shorter term options, the smart thing about that is, and apparently you know this already, you get higher theta on selling the shorter term ones and lower theta on buying the longer term ones. So this can produce a much higher profit, but there's a little bit more risk too because of what we call negative gamma. If the stock goes against you and it goes through that short-term short options strike price, you can lose more on that short option because you're less hedged. But if you're more advanced with, like, if you've already got 100 credit spreads under your belt, you're not like a professional, but you get it and you're getting good at it. That is definitely something that you could try. I would try it smaller. And there's still very high probability trades. You're still going to have that same high win rate. But time to time, one is going to go against you and you're going to realize, oh, geez, man, I had a bigger loss than I would have otherwise had. And then, you just get used to that sort of thing and make your nuanced adjustments on your strategy from that. And yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I love it. I love it. You are welcome, my friend. All right. And that is all we have time for. Once again, this is Dan Passarelli. Make sure you grab that strategy guide, markettaker.com/guide. And I will see you next week, in which we are talking about iron condor mastery, crafting a winning income strategy. And man, that's going to be a good one. And I can't wait to see you there. Over and out. Trade smart. Catch you next time. Bye.